I'm Webb. Welcome to Inside the Interview, a place where I turn the tables on decision makers at some of the world's most innovative companies and speak with them a little bit about their experience, but then more importantly, how they go about evaluating candidates during the interview process, and then more specifically, which 3 core competencies they must see in every candidate to decide to not necessarily make them an offer, but at least to say, you know what, I'd like to move this person to the next round of interviews. So today, I'm happy to bring on Steve McGarry. Steve McGarry is the CEO of Dapper Jobs. Dapper Jobs is a matching tool that helps companies and candidates match based on their value system. Steve, welcome to Inside the Interview.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start there. Tell me a little bit about Dapper Jobs and your role there as the CEO.
So Dapper Jobs, like you said, it's just a platform where job seekers can see their workplace compatibility with companies. We basically, candidates come through, answer a quick set of questions, and they're given a list of jobs, where they're located. It's location oriented. They're given their compatibility scores with the company's culture, and we give them a quick of the company's values, and we're prioritizing cultural fit over skills because our motto is skills can be taught and attitude cannot.
Okay. And tell me about your role there in the interview process, and at what point do candidates reach you?
So one of the things that I look for when I'm talking with candidates is I want them to really know that we prioritize culture, obviously, because we're a matching company. So we really look for people that are passionate about things outside of work. And once they can display that they're, for instance, when we brought on a developer, we basically say, what side projects do you have going on? And when they tell us what type of side projects are going on, that's automatically a first flag to raise, just because they're always willing to learn.
Okay. And there's obviously a sea of candidates, as I'm sure you're aware, that are constantly trying to break through the clutter and trying to get that opportunity at Dapper Jobs or anywhere else for that matter. How can candidates break through the clutter, and what advice do you have for folks to sort of rise to the top of your inbox and perhaps get a call or a follow-up email?
So lots of the issues that people have with finding jobs nowadays is they're kind of restricted by if they just reach out and email, let's say the CEO of the company, that's just out of line and that's not acceptable. But the reality of the situation is most of the clients that we deal with, people that reach directly out to the HR director or jump all the way to the top to the CEO, they're most likely will to go back down the chain of command and offer that second email because it shows initiative. And that's the one thing that people tend to not break out of their shell with is just the willingness to cold email someone that has a lot of credibility in the space.
Okay. And let's say, for instance, if they're able to do that, right? Let's say, for instance, they're able to break through that clutter. They get an email or a phone call back, and they're invited in. They're sitting down with you. Give me some common mistakes that you see people make. So they're up here with you. They're obviously able to get in the door, which is good, and you've obviously taken a look at their experience and their resume. Now they've sat down with you. What happens that would essentially be a turnoff for you?
So lots of times when people come and sit down, we try to keep everything relaxed, and just because interviews tend to be a lot more formal than they should be, because when you're in a workplace, you're not walking around formal every day. You're working, and you don't want to be formal. You want to be relaxed around your coworkers. So we try to have the initial line of defense as more of a relaxed situation. And a big mistake that I see people making is obviously everybody's going to be a little nervous. I'm nervous whenever I talk to people face. But the mistake that I see the most is sometimes people tend to sound like a robot when they come into an interview. They just memorize their resume and just start naming, all these things that they've done, and those are great things. But when we do our interviews, it's more of a conversation, and I have different tactics that I do where I'll meet out at lunch, or see how they treat the waiter, and I'll go to a bar, which is totally out there. But basically, you want to try and get personal level and still maintain professionalism. Mm-hmm. So just don't be a robot. That's the number one advice I can give. Don't be a robot.
Yeah, let me ask you this: do you have any advice for someone that tends to be nervous? Frankly, I had a candidate, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, it was the day before, that was overly nervous and just didn't do a very good job in a sales interview, which can always be tough to overcome. Do you have any advice for candidates to sort of calm their nerves and to not be so nervous if they have a tendency to be nervous? Or what do you do? You said you get nervous. What have you done in the past?
So that's a great question. So dealing with being nervous when you're talking to somebody, maybe if you they have a huge amount of credibility, they are up top in the company, it's just important to know that everybody's unique and they're just another human being. Like, they put their pants on one leg at a time. Mm-hmm. So whenever I'm meeting someone that has, a lot of experience, and, I'm a relatively young guy. Mm-hmm. So when I meet with people that have been in industries for 30 years that automatically kind of show me the door rather than listen to certain pitches that I'll be giving them, it's important to not, get intimidated. I guess that's the correct word. Just don't get intimidated, because they're people too, and everybody has to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. So it isn't logical for you to make yourself nervous, because they're people, and odds are if you're nervous, they're awkward, and it's a weird situation. Mm-hmm. So just kind of take a deep breath and relax. And just back to the robot point, just be relaxed, they'll be relaxed, and stress levels go down, and the interview will go well.
Well, one of the things you mentioned was, taking them to a bar or a restaurant and watching how they treat the wait staff, and just sort of getting out of the office setting. And obviously, one of the things that Dapper Jobs offers is a way to match those values, so to speak. And obviously, we lump that into cultural fit. What defined cultural fit for me at Dapper Jobs, but also when you're out there at the bar, in watching how they're treating the waitress, what values are you looking to see in the candidate that will tell you whether or not they're going to be a good fit for you?
So, when I'm going out with candidates and trying to figure out how they tick and figure out their values, what they care about, one of the things, I really look for is, like I said before, the side projects. Like, if they're working on something at night, they go home from work, that's an automatic win in my book, because that means that they are, one, a hard worker, or two, they're passionate about something other than, making money, and three, they have the drive to literally work a full day and then go home and about what they're truly passionate about. Mm-hmm. So I really, try to see how they, like I said, the waiters are a big flag that you can watch, just because, manners are important. As old school as that is, manners matter around the office. Mm-hmm. And you can definitely tell a lot on a person based on everything they do when they're at a restaurant.
How quickly can you tell? How quickly does that manifest itself? Again, whether you're sitting across from them in your office or at a restaurant somewhere.
So one of the reasons that I get out of the office is because I want to drop that whole nervous feeling. Yep. for both of us, just because, one-on-one meetings, because I meet with a lot of introverts that are, developers I just try to get onto a personal level with them. And when you're in a social setting and when there's a lot of people around you, kind of relate to being in a bar before, or meeting with the CEO of a company. Like, you just kind of have to come down on a personal level, and it's amazing how much information you can get out of someone when you're just relaxing and having a beer with them at a bar. It's 10 times more interview, and I'm not sure why bigger companies don't do it. There might be rules against it, but it's a big teller.
I've actually,
everybody's guard.
right. Yeah. Right. That I like that. I think that's a fantastic tactic. I've seen it used a couple of times. I've actually heard it defined. One of my clients, one of the J. David Group clients, defined it as the airport test. Right. In other words, they like to get the person out of the office and go to grab lunch or dinner or something like that, because let's say if this was like a sales position where they were going to be traveling a good bit of the time, and what happens if, like, let's say for instance, say it's like tomorrow, it's going to be likely a disaster up here in Boston, and what happens if you're waiting for your plane with somebody that you just hired, and you're already there 2 hours early, and all of a sudden you've got to be there for 4 hours or who knows how long, right? So it's like one of those things where they call it the airport test, which is how can I get to a bar with this person and sit with them for hours and feel comfortable, at least not necessarily fall in love with them or be their best friend, but at least they are that fit that I'm looking for as a person. And so yeah, I think that's a great tactic for sure. What about people that are, all right? So let's just say, so they've met with you, they've done a great job, sending their resume and getting your attention and all that. They are a culture fit, as you might see when you're taking them out and having lunch or dinner with them and what have you. But then at some point during the conversation, it comes up that they're not working anymore, or at some point in the past they hadn't been working, and the reason is because they were underperforming and they had to be let go. How can somebody overcome that in an interview? How can somebody handle that and address that in a way that won't sort of, I guess, count them out immediately in your eyes? Or can they? Maybe, or is it a non-starter for you?
Yeah, so lots of the clients that we deal with, they have initial filters that they put up for candidates on their way. School, they have to go to, Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, something like that, and they have to have worked at Google for 2 years at least. And some people are extremely particular. But one of the things that we found when we've been matching cultural fit is that it really, because I personally don't even look at the resume. I just sit down with the person and talk to them, and skills come last for me, because anybody can learn anything if they're motivated enough. Mm-hmm. So what I try to do is, if someone's trying to overcome that and they say, hey, I was let go of my last job, I just simply ask why. Mm-hmm. And if they say, I wasn't getting along with anybody there, then I'll just simply keep asking why. And usually what happens with, I've had this happen quite a few times, is that people that have been fired or terminated from their previous job, they come in and say, hey, what positions do you have available? And we send them through to a company that sources it out called CanGrade. CanGrade also does this to us. And basically, we get to see their personality type and nothing having to do with skills. That's one of the things that we emphasize is, if someone got fired, there's obviously a reason for it. Mm-hmm. But if they're really passionate about what they're doing, then they'll learn how to do any sort of skill, and their attitude will go right along with it. It's all about the attitude around the office and the culture that you make.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into that, because obviously one of the things that I say up front to begin with every interview is the 3 core competencies that you must see in every candidate to decide to move them forward or make them an offer, one or the other. And you mentioned passion, you mentioned fit, and those intangibles, and obviously skills will last. So before somebody gets up and walks out of the door, what 3 core competencies must you see?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I look for is the side project to let me know that they are learning and they're always willing to, and they're teaching themselves things. Mm-hmm. That's especially software developers. I always make sure that they have a side project. Passion, that's kind of hard to sense on a first interview, but you can ask questions like situational questions, like when you built your last product and you worked for your last company, how long were you working each day? Like simple questions like that, and people tend to respond, quite well. No one really knows how long they were working that day. So I look for those. And the last one is really just about personality. And if someone tells me a joke in the first 5 minutes of the interview or correlates a joke somewhere into what they're saying, they're going to go on and meet with the department that they're looking at. Mm-hmm. And that is a sign that someone's comfortable talking and they know their surroundings well. And at least our culture is a lot of humor around the office. So if you can crack a joke, and that is an instant good thing for us. And it's not like that with every company though. So make sure that read reviews on companies. Glassdoor is an amazing resource to read about companies, into people that have worked there. Yep. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, and obviously, to your point, it's important to, if that's part of your culture, it's important that the person that you're going to be hiring can assimilate to that. So if they're able to crack a joke early on, that they don't take themselves too seriously, but going to what you were saying before, they're still really passionate and serious about what they do, but at the same time, they can separate, work and play, so to speak, or sometimes they can combine them in a way that works. One of the things you mentioned is obviously it's hard to check how passionate somebody is in a first interview. And I was reading online somewhere recently. I thought it was just a great way to check passion. Actually, it's somebody that I'm interviewing at some point, I think over the next couple of months. But he had said that one of the ways he likes to check passion is to say, what are you most proud of? It could go all the way back to when you were a preschooler, let's just say, but what have you done in life that you are most proud of? And he says if they don't really have an answer for that, a good answer for that, then that probably means that they aren't necessarily a really passionate person. They haven't found one project or something that they could be really, really excited about in their entire time up until they've met you. And maybe they are one of those people that maybe they are excited about something, but they can't even articulate it, which means again that maybe they're a bit apathetic towards even some of their own achievements. So I just thought that was something that was interesting as a good way to check passion. Give me a synopsis of that, the question, how somebody should get up, or what the expectations are of you from the candidate as they're leaving the interview, or as you were saying, what a client should do, what a company should do in order to show that they're interested in the candidate.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, and when I, as the interviewer, see a candidate coming in and they hit all the proper notes, and I know that they would be an excellent cultural fit. Basically, I then try to ask them a little bit more of a personal question, like the question that you said, what was your greatest accomplishment? I'm definitely going to start asking that. Mm-hmm. And what I like to do is bring them out with our employees. So our co-founders and everybody, we love to take everyone out and talk and bring it down to a personal level, because maybe maybe let's say I'm actually doing the interview in my office, which would be weird, instead of a restaurant or a bar or something like that.
Right.
So then we would just kind of migrate across the street to a restaurant or a bar and let the person know, bring them into the community of people, and really touch down on what it is that cultural fit is about, and saying who our clients are, who the companies they might like working for. One of the big people that we follow is Tony Hsieh, the CEO of Zappos. He's extremely into cultural fit, and he gives people $2,000 within the first couple of weeks just to quit. And that's a big thing for us, by saying, like, you're working with, you could definitely go work for them. That's a great place to work. So just putting it all out on the table, and people respect that, and we respect people that can actually vibe off of that, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But back and ask, and it's everything is about signals within the interview, and we really bring people onto a personal level, and ignoring skills altogether because they're not important when it comes to culture. So yeah, that's about it. And the quick tip that I have is, if you're going to an interview, go into the bathroom and look at it first, because you can see how well a company treats their employees by how clean or how not clean the bathroom is. And that's something that I do with all the clients that we have, and every company that really just kind of talks with us, it's important to check out their bathrooms.
That is an awesome tip. I love that from a candidate's perspective. Actually, it's funny. I'm a landlord, and one of the things that I like to do from a landlord's perspective, we talk about the bathroom, is that before I actually allow someone to to give someone the ability to rent one of my apartments, I like to surprise them, frankly, and show up at their place of residence, and I'll ask them to use if I can use the bathroom. Because when I go into the bathroom, I can sort of as I'm walking to the bathroom, I can see exactly how they're treating the apartment that they're in now. Are there holes in the wall? Are they keeping it clean? All that stuff. And then when I go in the bathroom, if it's a disaster, then I know this is probably how they're gonna treat one of my apartments. And so then at that point I don't grant them permission to rent my apartment. I'll choose somebody else. So it's interesting that you can use that same trick, so to speak, when evaluating a job. If you're an applicant, just simply walk into the bathroom, and that's certainly a telltale sign. So that's awesome. I learned something in that for sure.
Yeah, bathrooms are universal tellers of how people do things.
Yes, they sure are. Let me ask you this. Let me just follow up on the end of the interview from another perspective, which is, let's say, for instance, let's say it's not even at Dapper Jobs, but just generally across the board. If somebody isn't lucky enough to get that warm and fuzzy feeling at the end of the interview, how should they? Is there a question that they should ask? You always hear about people, and one of the piece of advice I always give candidates is to close the interview properly. What does that mean to you? If you stop short of actually asking someone out with you and the team, and maybe there's still some question in your mind, maybe they're concerned that maybe they didn't do a good job during the interview, what should they be saying before they get up and walk away?
So one of the best closing questions that a candidate can ask is, what are you looking for in the candidate to fill this position, or what are the requirements for the position that I'm applying to? Mm-hmm. So if you ask that, that's setting the interviewer on their heels, mm-hmm. and you have to answer, within to keep your credibility, you have to answer quickly. So that's an automatic, really, really good way to close out the interview, is when they say, oh, we're looking for this, 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 and this. And then it kind of reiterates the fact that, you've gone over everything that they just mentioned, because obviously if you're interviewing a position, you have all those requirements. Right. So it really, a lot of the content from the interview based on, all the questions that they've asked are based around the requirements. And if you just fire right back at them and say, hey, what are the requirements? And it's gonna go through they just met all these requirements, and it's an excellent way to just reiterate the fact that you meet all the requirements.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, good stuff. Well, I'll get you out of here on this. I just have really two final questions, which are you hiring? And which positions are you hiring for? And I guess three questions, which is, if you are hiring, how can folks get in touch with you or apply for the jobs?
So we are currently not hiring,
okay,
but the companies that are posting on our site are. So if you want to get in touch, I'd be happy to pass people along to HR managers. We're in the major cities, Boston, New York, and San Francisco. So just email me at steve@dapperjobs.com, and I can forward you on to those people. And we hire based off 4 buckets, or the companies hire, They hire sales, technical marketing, product design, and software developers. So things that are on our site are all cultural oriented. So it's not a necessity to send them your resume, but it doesn't hurt. So just feel free to reach out and email me, and I will be happy to talk to anybody about cultural fit as a whole, or as sending you along to an HR manager at one of our clients.
Fantastic. And just in case it wasn't clear for those who might be listening, it's steve@dapperjobs.com is the email address. Steve McGarry, CEO of Dapper Jobs. Interview tips and advice were fantastic, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Jed.
Thank you for watching the interview with Steve McGarry, CEO of Dapper Jobs. If you'd like more interviews just like that one, don't forget to sign up for more interviews on this very page by putting in your email address. Thank you.